Hello and welcome to On a Storyteller's Night. So this will be a podcast about all things nerdy and geeky. So video games, movies, books, TV, everything and anything in between. And other types of gaming and Warhammer and whatever else we want to talk about at the time. I'm Nathan. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Wasn't My Fault, and pretty much everywhere else as Nukami. I've got years of experience doing this stuff because I'm getting on in age. I've been everywhere and done everything. And this is my friend Josh.
Good day, my name's Josh. You can also find me on YouTube as Assassino982480. Same on Twitch. They're my two primary resources of recording and connecting to the viewers out there across the world. I am the youngest one here, clearly, and I am I've got much more potential than my fellow host here.
What do you mean much more potential? That doesn't sound good at all. We'll be sorting that out, trust me. Okay, so first episode topic, which I've not told you before. So what we're doing as a basic idea for the podcast is one of us will come up with a topic for discussion or that kind of thing. So we have anything. It might just be about a current topic in the news or a current geeky thing and trailers and that sort of thing. But I thought I'd start with a very specific topic, not topping, because topping would be a weird one to talk about, but maybe we'll talk about pizza toppings. Yay, Great. Let's go with some pineapple. Just to annoy Gary more than anything else.
Agreed.
So this episode is going to be entitled Remake, Reboot, Reimagined, Remastered.
Oh.
So you can tell what this is about. It's one of those topics that is always floating around. And since we are self-confessed nerds, we like all sorts of different media types. We enjoy books, movies, TV shows, comic books, video games, board games, war games, you name it, we're into all of them. And each of the different types of media has different versions of remakes, reboots, reimagined, remasters. Are some better than others? There's certain types you shouldn't do with different types of media. So with a movie, should you never reimagine it? Should you never reboot or remake? What are our thoughts on that? Are there good examples? Are there bad examples? What do we think of this topic? What do you think then, Josh?
A strong topic to start off with, mate. Very strong topic.
I thought it would be a good one. It was like, what can I come up with that's a catchy title? Because it's all the R's. But yeah, it's something, especially at the moment. There's so many movies that are being remade, reimagined, and there's obviously reboots of stuff as well. But are they worth doing? Is there any point to them? Will we watch them?
The thing is, this topic isn't linear. It's not focused on one thing or too short. It's a vast, wide spectrum of things. It's a very nice topic.
Media. It's video games, it's movies, it's TV shows, it's books. It's, it covers a wide range of nerd topics that we enjoy. So it's
let me start off with a very, very strong thing here.
Okay.
Something that is very close to both you and myself. The Lord of the Rings remake or show on Amazon, because it's not long, and I've been holding this in, it's not long been greenlit for a third season. I've been keeping this from you, waiting for tonight or whenever we bring anything up about remakes or the Lord of the Rings in general.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
So this is remade for a third season.
A remake. It's a reimagining, really, because they
never are.
Exactly, because that's why I thought reimagined, remastered of all kind of different ways of dealing with media and changing it. Basically, what all of these different things do is try and cash in on people's nostalgia.
Exactly.
It's things we knew as a kid, things we knew growing up. And people have gone, we don't know what to make. Let's have a look what was popular in the past. Let's do a new version of it. Let's remake it, reboot it, reimagine it, remaster it, whatever they want to do. There's all of those different types in all the media, all the video games we played, especially a lot of those now, Resident Evil. Lots of remakes and remasters and everything else. But yeah, Rings of Power, I'd probably put that as a reimagine because it's not a remake of the movies because it's set at a different time.
Yeah.
They haven't done it before. And
the only thing that's, in my opinion, that is as close as it can get to Tolkien or Peter Jackson is the Balrog. That's it, because I've expressed this to you in the past. in the first season and especially the second season. Second season's worse, by the way.
I didn't get that far. I watched the first season. I was like, I'm not watching this shit.
Yeah, I watched the first season. My dad told me about the second season, and I watched the Balrog part. The only parts of the entirety of the first and second season that is close to the original source from Tolkien is the Balrog. And the whole Mines of Moria aspect. That's it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to reimagining, it's the closest we're going to get when it comes to a show for The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit.
Well,
for now.
But now we're getting more stuff soon anyway, aren't we? You know, more column. So that's where I think it'll be a lot better. But Rings of Power, it's one again. It's like a lot of the stuff they've done lately, like The Witcher, Halo. They've taken a popular IP, and they've taken some character names and some things that have happened, and then they've rewritten it in a different way because they think they can write it better than the original.
See, now this is where I will butt in quickly and say they've done something similar with The Last of Us, but with The Last of Us, they stayed true to the original source and they added things to their own, and they removed things that needed a touch-up that Naughty Dog specifically said, you can keep this 100%, but you are allowed to edit this. If you edit it and do something with it, you can interpret it all you want. But if you remove this and edit it, this specific thing, we're going to have a problem with you.
Well, what they did was made it more human. They added more background to some of the characters. Obviously, there's, you know, the big ones. They add a lot to the characters where all you had in the game was just letters telling you what happened and, you know, to those characters you didn't get to know them. But the TV show, they wanted to flesh it out and show the actual characters and how they lived and who they were, so you'd feel something for them, which is absolutely perfect because they didn't have time to do that in a game. A game, you're playing it, you're trying to get away from the monsters, you're doing all that, so there's not enough time for them to kind of flesh out secondary characters, because all they could have done is a cutscene, and that would have stopped the flow of the game. And it's more about finding out what happened to people. It's like, oh, these are people who knew. It's quite sad. But in the show, they can afford to do that. They can have flashbacks because it's not going to interrupt it. It's going to tell you what has happened and get you to know the characters and situations. And that's where it works really well. And I wish more, you know, TV shows and stuff would look at doing that rather than changing it for what they want. Because look at The Witcher. It started off quite interesting, but it's nothing like The Witcher. They just kept changing it and changing it. And as you know, there's loads of different articles everywhere where people are saying about the writers didn't actually like the source material. So why the hell are they writing it then if they didn't like what it was in the first place?
Exactly. I saw this not long ago as well. I saw the whole Witcher situation on Facebook about the original writers for the show on Netflix never really liked the original material.
Yeah.
And the only reason why they stayed true is because they wanted to keep Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
And once they got to the second season, they realized that we don't need Henry Cavill, but we all know The Witcher, especially the writers, they needed him. They needed Henry. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked.
Together, nobody would have watched it without him. They watched it because they knew he's a big fan. Do something
this is where I've got a little bit of a I would say two sides of a coin relationship with Liam Hemsworth doing it, because he is a lot like Henry Cavill. He loves The Witcher. He's played the games, he's read the books, but he hasn't acted in any role like that before. And the closest thing that I can think of is The Hunger Games, which, let's be honest, is probably the only standout book interpretation of a film that he's been in.
Yeah.
And if he comes in and he does a very, very poor job, in my opinion, we now only know one Hemsworth, not two, not three. We know one, and that's
the trouble is he's got a lock stacked against him because everyone is going to compare him to Henry Cavill. And the writing, to be honest, is going to be worse than it was because Henry Cavill isn't there to try and change things.
As his co-stars said in many, many interviews, he was the Witcher Bible on set. If there was something that was wrong, he would throw his 2 pence in, and he would make sure that 2 pence turns into 20 quid.
Hasn't got that luxury. He's been employed to just act a role. So to be honest, I think it's going to be awful for him because no matter what he does, People are going to compare him to somebody else. They're going to complain his acting's poor, even if it's not his acting. Bad writing can be just as bad as a bad actor. If the writing isn't there, an actor can do very little to recover it, which is a shame. It's like looking at stuff like Doctor Who. Love Doctor Who. Obviously, it's reimagined all the time. There's always new doctors. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't seem to work, and then you look back years later and they work. Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor, I thought she could have been absolutely fantastic. Her characteristics were good. She was quirky. She was an interesting character, and the writing was just so awful, I couldn't watch it. And I love Doctor Who, but I just could not watch it because the writing was so absolutely dreadful, and it ruined it for me because I thought she could really encompass the role really well, but the writing was just so bad, and the choices they made, they tried to change all of Doctor Who history and introduce a Doctor before William Hartnell's Doctor, which couldn't happen. And
No,
it
that was impossible to happen. I've never been a huge fan of Doctor Who. I've only ever watched Doctor Who mainly when David Tennant was the Doctor.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, just because I've watched him the most, he is my favourite Doctor.
Yeah.
But even I know you can't replace the original. No. And if you try and replace the original, the fan service is what's going to screw you up.
This is the trouble. They tried to... What they've done is something that I hate more than anything, is they tried to explain where the Doctor came from. I'm fed up with this. It's what like Rings of Power. I don't care where they came from. I don't care about the Rings of Power being made. We know how they were made. We know why they're made. We don't need to see it and see all the stories of all the people around it. I don't care. Harry Potter, I don't care about what happened to Voldemort before and him growing up. I don't care. He was there. The same really with Star Wars. I don't really care about Anakin Skywalker that much growing up. I don't care. He's Darth Vader. I don't really want to see Anakin Skywalker. You know, it's not needed.
Yeah, the same can be said for Marvel. There's a lot of Marvel characters like Spider-Man, hell, DC, Batman. We've seen the original origin story time and time again.
Exist. It's when they have something that's mystical and magical, and then they go back and tell you how it happened. It's like, I don't want to know how they got their powers. I don't want to know where they came from.
Rather leave it as
living in a world where they
exist.
There are, we take it for granted. There are Jedi, there are Sith. There's Darth Vader, there's the Emperor, there's Luke Skywalker, there's Yoda. That makes sense. I don't care what happened before. I don't need to know. To enjoy those stories, I do not need to know how they came to be. It doesn't add anything to it for me, because then they have to subtly change things. It's like Big Bang Theory. Love Big Bang Theory. I'm a huge nerd. I love it. I will not watch Young Sheldon. I will not.
No, I won't either.
And they keep changing things. But you change things that happened in the past means the present day doesn't work out the way it should. So you can't do that. You can't go back and make a whole series about somebody growing up and change it. Like one of the big ones, why he knocks on the door 3 times, because he caught his dad with another woman. And then in the Young Sheldon, they changed that so it was actually his mum dressed up as a maid or something. It's like, but that changes the whole arc of his character. And his dad didn't cheat. It's like, no, you can't do that. It's one of the biggest foundations of Sheldon's character is that childhood trauma, and then they try and rewrite it. It's like, you can't do it. That's what annoys me most about all reimagining things is the prequels. I hate seeing where things came from because they're making it up. If it wasn't written in the first place, the beginning part, you can't go back and then write it. It's like somebody else writing it and making it up as they go along to hope it matches up. You can't do it. And that's what Rings of Power did. They messed with every timeline. Half the people should never have met because they were thousands of years apart. So, like, what's the point? That whole Gandalf nonsense.
We don't talk about Gandalf in that show.
Just all of them. There's every single character there's like, so what you're actually saying is Sauron didn't really rule or do anything major. It's like, I'm pretty sure the Dark Ages with Sauron in charge took quite a while. So why are there people there like Isildur shouldn't be there? So Isildur's there. So Sauron's going to be in charge for 5 years before he gets his finger cut off?
That's what annoys me. Isildur was there less than half of Sauron's reign in Middle-earth. Sauron's reign only existed because Morgoth, his original Dark Lord ruler, got banished, and he isn't dead, bear in mind, so there is room that he can still return in a future installment. But he only came to fruition as Sauron after his Dark Lord got banished from Middle Earth. And then Isildur and then the Nine Kings came. And he dealt with them after nearly half an age. And half an age later, the three elves made the ring, and then that's when the Lord of the Rings happened. It's nearly 100 years after the original rings were made for the elves.
And yet it's all happening at the same time.
Which I despise.
That's what. Once again, they're changing the past to try and tell a story that didn't exist. It's it's like The Hobbit and having a love story between dwarves and elves. Why?
See, now this is where I'm going to say that. Right, no, in the books, it was the dwarves, then it was the elves. After the dwarves were given the rings, the elves saw what was going to happen. They made their own rings. And then Sauron's like, screw you lot, I'm making 9 for mortal men and 1 ring to rule all of your rings. And that's how it should be, not the elf first, then instantly the dwarves, kings, and then later on Sauron's. It all happened slow and steady. Not in a blink of a goddamn eye.
No, I know, it's just... Right, I think we need to...
It's making me angry.
Circle around the Rings of Power, never mention it again in our lifetime.
No.
But that's the thing that I think annoys me most about modern media is they try and do prequels to explain where things came from, explain how people got powers. Well, I don't care. It makes no difference to me. The original movie is great. I love it. I don't need to know how they got to that point. It's irrelevant.
Which is why I want to speak about this new James Gunn Superman. It's doing what the fans wanted. We do not need to know the origin story. We do not need to know where Superman came from and how he got his powers. We're going in like 5 years into Superman's life and story on Earth in Metropolis already, which is what we all wanted for once.
Yeah, exactly. We want that. Henry Cavill one was just such a mess. It was so stupid. None of it made any sense. Henry Cavill was okay in the role, but it just didn't work, any part of it. None of it made sense at all. It was just stupid. There was no Clark Kent character at all. And that was just, It's like the Batman movies when there isn't really a Bruce Wayne. That's my biggest trouble with the Dark Knight series. Is Bruce Wayne is pretty much non-existent. He's an afterthought, and no, it's who he pretends to be. He is Batman that pretends to be Bruce Wayne, and Superman is really Clark Kent that kind of pretend. They're the opposite of each other. Because Clark Kent is really who Kal-El is. Superman is who he embodies to be in public and do a job. But Clark Kent is who he really is. Whereas Batman is who Bruce Wayne is Batman. But he's Bruce Wayne when he can't be Batman. When he's, just doing day-to-day life just to fund what he does as Batman. So it's the two different sides of being the hero or the real person. It's like they're flipped around. But not enough of them do that. And it annoys us. What I loved about the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, he played 2 different characters, totally different characters, different posture, different voice. Everything about it was 2 different characters. And you see that one big scene where he's thinking, right, I'm going to tell Lois, and he takes his glasses off. He becomes Superman, and he stands up tall. His voice deepens. He's confident. And he puts his glasses on, and he's stuttering, and he's stumbling, and he's stooping, and he's not as tall. And that's what they're not doing with all of them. As much as I know people don't like some of the earlier Batman, like, look at the old Adam West. He kind of played the same character twice.
Yeah.
He had the same voice. You could tell it was Batman. And then you look at Michael Keaton, and he played them as different people. You could see he was always awkward as Batman, as Bruce Wayne. He was always looking around him and nervous and didn't know quite what he was doing. He was always seemed lost and out of place. And then when he was Batman, he had the confidence and everything else. But they don't do that anymore. You look at any version of Batman or Superman recently, and it's just the same character all the time, or just forgotten about. Clark Kent is just Superman with glasses on. Well, no, he acts differently. He's not as confident. He's not as sure of himself because he's not sure how to, act and not be, himself. It's just so frustrating that they just don't understand.
It goes back to the Snyderverse, the Batman Snyderverse, where he was a killer. He was the killer Batman. He didn't care about human life as long as the villains or the criminals got what they deserved. he was Bruce Wayne as Batman and Batman as Bruce Wayne. Batman never left the side. Bruce Wayne, you picture Bruce Wayne, he's a philanthropist. He's a multi-billionaire, and he speaks to the audience. He makes sure that Gotham's doing fine. He's trying his absolute hardest to follow in his mum and father's footsteps before he found out their dark past. But when this Snyderverse Bruce Wayne is involved, he is being Batman as Bruce Wayne. He's always doing his side objective. Exactly. He's always sneaking about and doing Batman stuff. Like, that's not Bruce Wayne.
Did you notice as well in the Snyderverse, at every opportunity, they tell everyone who they are?
Exactly. Every opportunity.
Batman goes off to get Aquaman, and he's talking loudly in front of lots of people that he's Batman and he's Bruce. It's like, you've told everyone his secret. Oh, Snyder just so shit. I've never enjoyed any of his movies. He's just crap. He cannot direct. He cannot write. He's just shit. Everything he does is just crap. Every single one.
I would say Zack Snyder is Michael Bay, but without the script. Michael Bay can direct. He can
as long as there's
make
big
a script.
Explosions.
Yeah, as long as there's explosions in his script, he's happy and he'll direct it.
As long as there's explosions and Megan Fox, and then he's happy.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Zack Snyder, he's like,
it's like that stupid Rebel Moon. I won't even give that the time of day. It's his version of Star Wars. Great. Yeah, that'll be fun. He's a waste of space. Do not rate him at all. Not
likewise. I understand where he's trying to go, but he's just executing it in a very, very poorly way.
Yeah. It's the trouble. Too many people have their own ideas. So once again, it goes back to the established characters, and these people come along and think they know better. They can do the character better. They can make these changes to it. It's like, no, you can't. People like these characters because of who they are. These characters have endured the test of time because, at their core, they are characters that everyone knows. You can't then go, all right, I'm doing a movie with this person, but I'm going to change the characteristics of them so they're unrecognizable and they've just got the name. No, that's not going to make people watch it. They're not there for the names. They're there for the people that encompass those names. That's the difference they're not understanding. With all of these, with books, video games, when they adapt it into another format, they take the names and change it. So, the big one, Resident Evil.
Oh, God.
Why can't they make a good TV show or film? The original Resident Evil movies, I loved them. The first one's still one of my favorite movies. I loved that. It was close.
I had a chat with my dad about that today, of all things that had to come up. I had a chat about him with the first Resident Evil film with Mia Mikhanovic. And that is the closest we've had to an original Resident Evil game adaptation. The lab, the mansion going into a secret lab. That's the closest we've got. The one Return to Raccoon City was that doesn't even deserve the time of day for me.
No, they don't. It's what just annoys me. And the TV show, I couldn't watch it. I started as much as I love Lance Reddick. I only watched it
for Lance Reddick, to be fair. I knew it's going to be shit. I've told you, I've only watched it for Lance Reddick. I started watching it,
and within the first 5 minutes, that stupid thing with a rabbit, and I was just like, no, I'm not watching this.
I'll always say there's only 3 things that they got right in that Netflix adaptation: the lickers, the Cerberus dogs, and the goddamn origin story of Albert Wesker. Jill Valentine was never black. She never had a sibling. Albert Wesker, yes, as much as Lance Reddick did really well, he was never black. He never had an afro.
It's not that worries me. It's more when they change who the character is. Black, white. They can do that. There's certain things like it's based on a video game, fine, as long as they have the characteristics. I don't mind that, but it's when they do it for the wrong reasons. That's what annoys me when they do it just because, we need diversity. That's what annoys me when diversity for diversity's sake is that's another one where, that's another one where they're now reimagining. Little Mermaid. I actually enjoyed The Little Mermaid. I thought it was a brilliant movie. I really enjoyed the live action, but I don't think some of the characters were as strong as they were in the original. Like Sebastian, no offense to the guy that did it in the live action, but it was nowhere near as good as the original Sebastian. You couldn't. The original one, he was just too good. You can't compete with that. But all in all, it wasn't bad. Beauty and the Beast, I quite enjoyed as well. Live action was good. Snow White, let's just dump that off the face of the planet straight away.
Yeah, I was about to say is it Gal Gadot and someone else?
Yeah, Gal Gadot is the evil queen.
Evil Queen. They have said in many, many red carpet interviews that interpreting Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs into their own story, it's like, no, that you only edit it. You don't redo a source like.
But this is what annoys me about the latest Disney ones. That one is just all over the place. Everything about it is all about, she's not a damsel in distress. That's the trouble they get away from. So the one that really annoys me lately, that's actually, been out for a while, is Peter Pan. So they did some stuff with the new Peter Pan. They've done live action Peter Pan before, and it works. But the newest one, they made the most ridiculous change possible to Wendy. Now, the whole point of the Wendy character is to show the Lost Boys there's a better way. You don't have to fight. She teaches them the soft skills, caring for people and, loving family. Those are the things she teaches the Lost Boys. What happens with the new one? She beats up pirates. So what is the point of the character? The point of the character of Wendy was never that she's as strong as Peter Pan and as good as Peter Pan fighting. No, she's supposed to teach the Lost Boys another way. So they want to go home. They want to grow up because they see there is a better way to live. That's the whole point of the character. And they stripped that away and made Wendy just a generic girl that can beat people up. What's the point? They've lost sight of what the original character was meant to be. And they changed it for all the wrong reasons. They changed it. Oh, look, strong female character. Here we go. Where we're going with a strong female character that makes no sense? Star Wars. Same shit.
Oh, God. I don't,
Ray, why? Why is it that somebody that has never been around the Force, didn't even know what the Force is, can suddenly do the Force better than people have changed their entire lives?
That goes straight into the second film, and I don't want to talk about Rey. She really upsets me.
It's just no point to the character. She's too good at everything. The reason why we like Star Wars.
They can fly now. They can fly now.
Luke Skywalker was useless in the first movie. He could do absolutely nothing. His aunt and uncle died. He couldn't do anything. He decides he's going to save the princess. What does he do? Absolutely nothing. He needs Han Solo to help him. He needs Obi-Wan to help him. The only thing he does is uses the Force at the end to destroy the Death Star when he finally starts listening to people. That's the only thing he did through the entire movie. Every other point, people had to save him.
Yeah, and then he goes out off his own accord. Like, thanks to Obi-Wan, he knows there's another Force wielder out there, Yoda. He went off his own accord, his own back, to go and train to make sure that he learns the Force. And before you know it, he isn't as powerful as, I would say, like Qui-Gon Jinn or Anakin Skywalker in his prime.
The whole point of this is to get that character arc. So the first film, he knows nothing. He doesn't know about the Force. He gets introduced to it, and he starts to learn. So, I can do something with this. And he learns that he has a place in the world, and he can try to make the world a better place. The universe a better place. In the second movie, he starts to go down that rabbit hole. It's like, I can learn this, I can do that. But he still can't do it. Darth Vader kicks his ass. Totally. He loses his hand. He loses his best friend. He loses everything. He fails completely. And then the third movie, he's come into his powers. He's been around a while. He's been practicing. He's been learning. He creates his own lightsaber. He's got to the point where he can now do something. And he still doesn't achieve it. He still gets beaten up. It's only because his devotion to his father, believing in his father, makes his father kill the Emperor, not somehow he escaped, kills the Emperor, and saves Luke. Luke Skywalker didn't really do all that much apart from help Anakin Skywalker come back from the dark side. He didn't beat anyone throughout any of the movies, but he learned how to be a Jedi. And it's not about being strong. It's not about beating people. It's about the redemption. It's about believing in people. That's what that arc was about. How Luke Skywalker can come from being nobody, knowing nothing, to being the person that helps his father redeem himself. That's what that's all about. And then the new ones, it's about some girl that can beat everybody up. Like, why? And like Luke Skywalker, he was such a good character. He learned all of this. He redeems his father, who is a mass murderer. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
genocidal maniac, and he redeems him. And then he has a nightmare about his nephew, and then tries to kill him. It's like, this isn't the same person, is it?
Let's just put Disney's point of view and George Lucas's point of view together. Disney, we know about Disney's whiny ass Luke Skywalker, a fully already potentialized Ray Palpatine. I always said the forbidden S word then.
God, I would have stopped at you, and then if you'd called it the S word. Jesus.
And the whole Princess Leia flying in space thing. Let's put George Lucas's adaptation, the way he would have written, the way he wanted to do before he realized he screwed up by selling the rights to Disney. He wanted Darth Maul to be the main villain of the sequels, not the prequels, the sequels. Yeah. That's number one. Number two, Palpatine was dead. After Darth Vader killed him, dead. It was Darth Maul's time to rise from the criminal.
Somehow.
Yeah, somehow. It was Darth Maul's time to rise from under the ashes that Palpatine put him under.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they could have done it because Solo, once again, crap movie, didn't need it. I don't care where Han Solo came from. It wasn't Han Solo. It was nothing like him. None of that movie made sense. It was shit. All the Solo movie did was to say that Han Solo is actually shit. He can't fly. He's not a pilot. The ship was doing everything. It then explains why Rey could fly the ship, because she wasn't flying the ship. The navigational computer that was previously a droid flies the ship. And has always flown the ship for Han Solo. So Han Solo can't fly for shit. Rey can't fly for shit. The ship was doing everything. So that's just made Han Solo a piece of crap. Because what did he do? That's the one thing he was good at, was flying the Millennium Falcon and, saving Luke in New Hope. But he didn't.
The third point that George Lucas puts across, which I'm about to say about Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, Han Solo's meant to have a very, very small role in the sequels. He was meant to die very early on. He was meant to see his son, and they played it out exactly to what George Lucas expected it to be like. Yeah. But a bit later, he wanted Han Solo to be killed by his son towards the midway point, not towards the end. Yeah. As for Luke Skywalker, he was a bit of a whiny sod at the beginning, but he realized that he is the last Jedi and someone else out of nowhere just pops up. He needs to train this Jedi. There's going to be a new wave of Force sensitives and he needs to toughen up, which he never did in the sequels. He was still a whiny sod.
The fact he killed himself with a Force overdose. What the hell is that about?
Force overdose. Brilliant.
What was it? I'm going to force projection myself across the galaxy and then just somehow die?
That second one, what is the second one? I don't even remember the second title for the sequels. It's the worst one in my opinion. The first one, best. Third one, second one, last. I hate that second sequel.
What the hell was it called? I don't even know.
I'll get it up now.
It was The Force Awakens. Rise of Skywalker is the last one, which is stupid because he died, so he's not rising anywhere. So what the hell was the middle one?
So here we go. We've got Star Wars sequel trilogy. We've got Star Wars Force Awakens, which is the best out of the three. Then you had Star Wars The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, The Last Jedi, yeah.
That's the worst one. That has to be the worst one. And then you have Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which is very crap at the end. But
no,
the beginning,
that's crap all the way through.
Yeah, but it's not as bad as The Last Jedi.
Oh, come on.
It's not as bad as The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi killed off Luke Skywalker by having, as you say, a Force overdose. And Kylo Ren just isn't needed. You clearly find out he isn't needed in that film.
Yeah, but the next one, come on, you cannot say it's good when there's, the Emperor comes back, and look, he's got a whole armada of Star Destroyers that nobody's noticed. And the whole thing with that knife that tells you how to get to the place. So the Sith have always known this place where the Emperor is going to hide out with all his shit. What?
No, I'm still...
what? No. And the whole, just everything about it. which was it? That movie where they had the casino bit? It was, wasn't it? What was that about?
Yeah,
The
it
casino
was
heist
at
bit.
the beginning. It
What
was
the
like
hell?
in between the beginning and the first and second act. It was in between.
That
But
was just
I'm
stupid.
still going to stand by my gut and say
No,
the Last Jedi was the worst one of the three.
well, it's a very tight thing
Tight
between the
one.
two of the worst movies ever created, and if saying one's worse than the other is quite a stretch because they're both just awful dog shit, really, aren't they? Let's be
All
honest.
right, do you know what? I'll
Everything
settle on
about
that. The Force Awakens is the best out of the three. The Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker are equally bad.
Yeah.
But the Force Awakens, I
The
remember
better
watching
pile
it for
of
the
dog
first
shit
time.
out of 3 piles of dog shit isn't much of an accolade, though, is it? Let's be
No,
honest. There's not many
No, it's
redeeming
not.
factors in the movie, apart from the only thing I do like about it is that Rey goes up to Luke and he's just like, "Who the fuck are you?" and just throws the lightsaber over. I like that because that's how we all felt about the whole movie. He encompasses everything that we thought because that should have been such a moment, and it was just like, and that blue milk. And the porgs. Oh my god. I'm sick of them making cute things for the sake of cute things. Like, what's the point of the porgs? Ugh.
Like when it comes to the sequels, there's always one thing that left a very strong, horrible sensation in my mouth whenever I speak his name. And I wish they did something with him because this one guy had so much potential, and that is Snoke. He had so
There's
much
a few of them
potential.
had potential.
Finn
should have been a fucking Jedi. It should have been him with a lightsaber,
Yeah,
not
it should have
Rey.
been Finn. That works so much better. That's a story that works so much better. He was a part of
What
the.
arc did he have? He was a stormtrooper that became good, and then he should have learned the ways force. When he picked up the lightsaber, it was like hell yeah, and he gets cut up. It's like oh, and then he did nothing for the rest of the trilogy. You know what was the point of him? Snoke was one of those. I think they should have had something other than Snoke was a stupid character.
See, I
It made no
really
sense.
liked Snoke when he first
didn't.
appeared in Force Awakens. Like, ooh, this is probably like someone that was training underneath Palpatine. I like this, and then the second and third movie, we know the rest. It really annoyed me.
But what really annoys me about Star Wars in general is the whole Sith. There can only ever be 2. That's nonsense. There's always about 10. Let's be honest. There always is. Every single time.
George Lucas made it goddamn clear that way before the prequels, the Jedi and Sith were at war. That indicates there is more than just 2 Sith.
But do you know what it is? It's because Yoda and the Jedi are so stupid that they believe there can only be 2. It's like, why would you think there's only going to be 2 Sith? Like, seriously, you think there's only going to be 2 people Force sensitive that are going to go down the dark side? Like, seriously, come on, grow up a bit, man. Really, that's just. But that for me is, people take it as, oh, there can only ever be 2. No, that's what the Jedi believed because the Jedi were given crap information by maybe Dooku. Who knows who gave them the information that there can only ever be 2, a master and apprentice. No, because they die out quite quickly. There's going to be loads, and the apprentice is going to become a master, and he's not going to just become a master by killing his master and then get no, because why would you train up some apprentice knowing they're going to cut your head off sooner or later? That don't work, does it? Nobody would be doing that. You wouldn't train anybody up.
This is why I always watch a bunch of like what ifs on Star Wars, because it just makes fan adaptations are always better than the corporate ones. The fans make it how other fans feel, how they think it will go, how they feel like it should be, whilst the corporate write the story just for a quick buck.
Yeah. Fine. I'm going to change the subject now because we've been talking about Star Wars and remakes and stuff. We haven't really covered all the different things. So some of that is obviously the reimagined, especially Rings of Power and Star Wars. That's reimagined rather than a remake. So what do you think about remakes? Should or shouldn't it happen? Because obviously we've got things that are really old, films are made in black and white and silent movies, and then they try and update them for modern day. Same with video games. You have an old video game. Is it worth remaking it? Should they remake it or just remaster it? Is there a distinction there between the two? Is it better to do a remaster or a remake? Because we're coming up with like Harry Potter is being remade soon as a TV show. with obviously all new cast, and there'll probably be some
That
interesting
doesn't
choices.
need a remake because the films are still, in my opinion, very
The
goddamn
films
recent.
are good, but there's a lot they missed out that meant some of it doesn't
yeah.
make sense. You
But
look
at the
at
same
the
time, it's still
Marauders
very
map.
recent. It's
But,
still
yeah,
a
I
recent
know,
project.
but they're not doing it as movies, they're doing it as a TV show, which I think is a good thing because there's a lot of stuff they couldn't do in the short movies. So one of the big ones for me that always annoyed me about the movies is the Marauders map. You never find out the history of the Marauders map. It mentions the names on it, but it doesn't mention who any of those are. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's missing, and there's a whole chunk of that finding out about the original Order of the Phoenix. They're all animagus. They all did that because of Sirius being a werewolf, not Sirius. Lupin being a werewolf, so
Yeah,
they all
Lupin,
changed
I was
into
about to say.
dogs and different animals so that he couldn't infect them, so they could spend time with him and help him. None of that is really covered, and it misses out a lot of that kind of thing. And I think that's good to include that, because that's the trouble when they make a film out of a book, like Lord of the Rings. Look how much they miss out. There's hundreds and hundreds of different things they miss out. Barrow Whites is still the biggest one for me that annoys me, because you need that blade to be able to hurt the Nazgul king so that Arwen can, kill him with moldy stew and all that. But, you need that moment, and they didn't have it. So they was just like, oh, look, here's some blades. Here you go, have it. And it meant nothing. So with an extended TV show, they can do that, which I think is good. But obviously there's other remakes, like recently there's Nosferatu came out, which is a remake of several remakes, to be honest, but I have a lot of problem with it. So I'm obviously a big fan of Nosferatu. I'm a big fan of vampires and Dracula and everything else. Dracula's one of my favourite books of all time, which is still yet to be made into an actual movie because they never follow the book, which really annoys me. But anyway, Nosferatu, originally 1922, I believe it came out. Black and white movie, silent, just music and big cue cards come up and tell you what's happening. Brilliant, brilliant movie. The Stoker family tried to ban it because it is a blatant rip-off of Bram Stoker's Dracula book. And this is what annoys me about Dracula, Nosferatu and all that. So you get Nosferatu is a rip-off of the Dracula book.
Yeah, 1922.
Yeah, so that's a rip-off of Stoker's original book. They changed the names, but it's pretty much following most of the storyline and taking a lot of cues from the original book. And they've remade it a few times. There's a colour version in the 70s as well, I believe. And then also in the 90s, they did Shadow the Vampire, which was a movie based on the making of Nosferatu, which had... why have I forgotten his name? Green Goblin. What's his name? Why have I forgotten his name? William Dafoe played the part of the actor that played Nosferatu, Max Schreck. So it's that was quite an interesting spin on it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing that really annoys me. So you've got Nosferatu is a movie based on the book Dracula. You then got the Dracula movie with Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman as Dracula and that sort of thing. And that was quite good. But they called it Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it didn't follow the book. Half of it followed the Nosferatu movie. So now you've got a movie based on a book and a movie based on the movie based on a book.
Which
is a little bit
spiral.
of a weird thing. But now they've made Nosferatu, this new colour one with one of the Skarsgård as Nosferatu, which, could have been good, but I did not enjoy it at all. It was awful. I thought it was dreadful. There's so many problems I have with it. One is how Nosferatu
the
looked.
cast as well, and it was just
The
sad to see it.
Nosferatu himself, he looked like Borat, but bald. He's a bald Borat who has gone to another country to find a wife. That's what they turned it into. That's basically what it is. But they've based a lot of that.
No.
Oh yeah, William Dafoe's in it as well.
Bill Skarsgård, Lily Rose Depp, William Dafoe, Nicholas Hoult. That's a good name as well. Emma Corrin, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Arneson.
Yeah.
Who's the new Galactus, if you remember.
This is the thing that really annoys me, is that what they've done is taken a lot of their ideas from Gary Oldman's Dracula. which was based on Nosferatu, which was based on Dracula. So this is a remake of a remake of a remake of a book. Why have they remade Dracula and changed the names? So what they've done is the same as the original Nosferatu was a remake of Dracula, and instead of remaking Nosferatu, they've remade Dracula again with different names. So they've done the same thing, but worse. And the really annoying thing is like the dialogue is dreadful. The acting is over the top and dreadful. Aaron Taylor-Johnson, oh my god, he's awful in it. It's just, I was watching it. It's just like just felt so wooden and ridiculous and out of place. And then you see William Dafoe. It's like, oh yeah, William Dafoe, and he's quite good, but he's the only good bit of the movie. Unfortunately, nobody else is very good at all. The dialogue, it's what they've tried to do is do a new film, but try and make it look like, an old film. They've tried to do it like a period drama, but it doesn't work because people don't talk like they're in a period drama at all. And it's all mismatched and all over the place. And it's just, there's some classic moments from the original Nosferatu that, it's like, these are the classic big moments, and they don't do them. So you're waiting and waiting and waiting for these big, classic scenes, and it never happens. The only time they do is right at the beginning. There's a shadow, and like there's this billowing curtain. There's a shadow, which is the outline of Nosferatu, and that looks like Nosferatu. And then you see him, and he's got a weird mustache, and he's like all his. No, it's just none of it works for me at all, which is a shame because I love Nosferatu. I absolutely love the original movie. I've got several versions of it. I've got the original version of it. I've got a version of it as well where they've changed all the music to have music from Typo Negative, which is mental. I love it. I think it's brilliant, but they missed the mark so badly. Now he's doing a werewolf movie as well, and I'm thinking, why are people raving over it? Like, Jack enjoyed it. I didn't. I found it boring.
I remember you telling me that.
I found it so boring and dull and uninteresting and generic. This is the trouble.
This is what we spoke about not long ago. It's the new remakes are more towards the newer eyes and newer born audience.
Yeah.
When
it's all about what you're seeing. It's not that it's very much in your face. It's like, have a look at this. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing. There's no subtlety in it, and that's what for me is missing. It's like there's a classic moment in the original Nosferatu, which they tried to do, but they didn't even half-arsed it. It was ridiculous. So there's a moment where you get the girl there, and it's showing that he's taken her heart and taken her over, and you see this shadow of his arm like moving up her body, and then kind of crushes her heart, and it's all done like shadow and just like the silhouette of his hand. And that was like a big moment. She reacts to it, and that is like a really classic moment. They tried to do that, but it didn't work at all. It wasn't even done half as well. And it's just like, it's just so frustrating that they've got all this technology and they didn't utilize it in the right way. It's just, they're just so lazy with it all. That's what I think is my biggest problem with it, is the laziness of it. They're not doing, like, they're trying to do it in a different way to make it update. And look at all this blood, and look at this gore, and look at that. And it's like, it doesn't need that. You do not need that level of things for it to be a good story. Yeah, but I don't know what happened then. I don't know when I lost that. Damn it, I had a good old rant about Nosferatu, and I don't know if it caught it. I don't know what happened then. It just lost my audio for some reason.
Oh, no, I heard I reckon about 90% of your run.
Ah, well, never mind. So where it is. Right.
Yeah,
what we haven't covered is like remasters and so on, like video game side of it.
Right.
So obviously
this is where I'll go and straight into the deep end and say Resident Evil 6.
Yeah.
They're remastering 6 for the PlayStation 5 and the Nintendo Switch.
Well, Switch first and then PlayStation.
Switch first and then PlayStation. Yeah. It didn't matter what way I put it in, but regardless, it's, in my opinion, and this is strongly believed, in my opinion, it's not needed. It should have been 5. 6 doesn't deserve it as of yet. I do believe Capcom will remaster and remake, do a remake 4, 5, and 6, and I think they will stop there after doing 0 and Code Veronica. Once they do 0 and Code Veronica, then they'll do 5 and 6, and they'll stop with remaster or remakes.
To be honest,
they have to.
5 isn't needed and 6 isn't needed. They're fairly new. 5 was shit anyway, so yeah.
I again disagree. 5 was good. I would say shit was
no,
good.
it was fun because it was a multiplayer.
But
That's
yeah,
what
I will
made it
agree.
fun.
Solo player, I burn out really quickly.
It's just not. It's once again, it's what my problem is before. It never feels like Resident Evil. It never does. You know, you go into 6 instantly. There's zombies, there's situations, and it feels just like a Resident Evil movie. It flows like Resident Evil. You know, the annoying camera angles when you're trying to run upstairs and it changes and you're suddenly running down the stairs all of a sudden. You know, that stuff happens. 5
Now-
never ever feels like a Resident Evil movie. Game
With
in
you
any way.
saying that on a podcast that will potentially do its worth in Spotlight and gaining viewers and listeners, well, listeners over viewers, but a lot of people who are Resident Evil fans who do come to this podcast will strongly disagree with you.
They can
6.
strongly disagree if they want, but 5 doesn't have those Resident Evil vibes at all. It doesn't feel like it. It's
Now,
a bunch
6
of
is just
people
renowned to
you
be
know.
the worst title. 6 is
Yeah,
renowned to
people
be
say
the
that,
worst
but
title yet.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's probably because it was multiplayer. Single player, I can't imagine it being as interesting. But it wasn't made to be a single player. But it feels like Resident Evil, and it's not just about zombies. But it just feels like it. The situations, the places. It's what I don't like about 5 is it doesn't feel like it because you're not in like anything like Raccoon City. It doesn't even have to be Raccoon City, but like the city environment, being out in the jungle and stuff, it never feels the same. The thing is about Resident Evil for me, it's claustrophobic.
Yeah.
That's what I think feeling with Resident Evil. It's that horror, the claustrophobia. That's what you get from Resident Evil because they're closing in on you. You can't go very far. You're in a city that's blocked. You can't get out. You're in a house. You can't get out. You're trying to find a way out. 5 isn't that. 5 is out in the open, and you don't have that same feeling to it. 4, in very many ways, feels like that as well. You know, you're out sort of in the open. It doesn't feel the same kind of way, and the whole village is throwing stuff at you. I know, like, 7, 8 has got the villagers and that kind of thing, but that feels more claustrophobic. Even though you're outside for 8, 7 I think is brilliant because you're in the house for most of it, and all the locations are kind of it's keeping you trapped.
Yeah, I think first person helped a lot as well. The first person aspect really threw
100%, yeah.
the new type of like,
made it
this
work.
is what we've got ready for the players. Enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. That's where 5 let me down because it just didn't feel like Resident Evil. It had some of the gameplay, but it didn't feel like it.
I will agree. 5 is. I would say 5 is the most open game. You know exactly what's going to happen. Every chapter, you're like, this is going to happen. It's very predictable.
Yeah.
But every other title before and after, in my opinion, I'm bringing out the word linear again. It is very linear and liminal. You are predicting what happens. You're not knowing what happens. It's not that predictable. You are thinking about situations, about different routes and different storylines that can happen from the moment you have your next cutscene. After that next cutscene, it's like, I feel like this can happen, and before you know it, the completely opposite idea happens.
Yeah, exactly. Because
you don't know. It's too
Yeah.
linear. You don't know what's happening. You're going down a straight line, and you think you're going down that straight line until you get knocked off onto a different line. It's completely all over the place.
Resident Evil 5 for me feels like the old light guns games. House of the Dead, Time Crisis. That's what it felt like. There were moments when it was precisely that. You're on the back of a truck, you've got a gun. But the whole game felt like that. It felt like you were just following a path and you couldn't deviate, you couldn't do it. The other ones, you look at even Resident Evil 1. You're in one house, but you get to choose where you want to go and how you do it. 5 didn't feel like that. 5 was very... You have to go here, you have to go there, and it just leads you down a very narrow path. But that should have made it feel like enclosed, but it didn't.
You see, 4 and 6 is similar in its own right, but you have more of an exploration style. It's like you and I when we got to that graveyard in 6 with Leon and Helena. It's like we spent way too long in that grave because we knew we are missing something.
Yeah.
and it gives you that exploration. And once we've found out or figured out what we missed, which was the skill points, the queen, I believe, it's like, oh, that actually helped us in the long run.
Yeah.
It's just 5. I will agree. You are in one place. Actually, 5. When it comes to 5, I think the only
the big thing for me with 5 is that it's all so obvious. You step into a room, there's big explosive canisters around. Oh, the room's going to lock. There's going to be some squidgy monster. We have to use the canisters. Every time something like that happened, oh, it's a boss battle, you knew exactly what was coming every single time and how to kill it, even if you couldn't do it because the camera angles were so bloody stupid and you had to end up using a rocket launcher. But you knew exactly what it was you had to do. You just couldn't always do it because it wasn't designed properly to be able to do it. That's what I think annoys me.
When it comes to 5, I think when we're talking about exploration and being stuck in a tight space where you're just, you know where you're going, the only part of exploration, in my opinion, that was actually shown in 5 was the whole speedboat in the swamp, where I got killed by the goddamn crocodile. Yeah. That is the biggest part of the game where you can go any way and you can choose when to carry on with the story anytime you want. But you have a big place with 5 different locations to go and explore, gather new stuff, gather stuff that can grant you money to upgrade your weapons, to buy weapons, ammunition, etc. That's the only part of exploration in 5 that we actually had. In 6, you have every map. After every cutscene, everywhere you go, unless it's like, say, you meet up with Ada 1 for the first time in the mines, and you're fighting Helena's sister, you are following a script, which is totally fine. But before that, the entire time before that and after that, you were going in circles, trying to find out one thing until you're ready to hit the middle of that circle and leave. That's what Resident
Evil for me always was. You look at the first couple of games,
exploration.
You have to look around. There's a locked door. You need it, and you need the shield key. Oh right, where's the shield key? Oh wait a minute, I have to move this and do this. 5 didn't have those moments.
No.
6 did a certain amount.
When it came to puzzles for 5, it was. Yeah, when it came to puzzle for 5, it was that Mayan temple, but then again, that was very in your face. Yeah, it was very in your face. It's borderline. It was a puzzle, but it's borderline. We already know what to do. It's clear. There's different colors. It wasn't really a puzzle because
you couldn't go different directions.
It was
and then
forcing you down the directions.
You know, even in the original game, you had all the different puzzles for the different keys, but you could do them in any order pretty much. There's certain ones you had to do before, but it's pretty much you go around, and you didn't necessarily know what you had to use where until you discovered it.
One of my favorite puzzles in 1, before they even made a remake and then a HD remaster of it, was the statues in the top floor of the mansion. Like, you move one statue in and then 2 pop back out, and you have to get the right combination for all of the statues to be pulled in by themselves.
The only bit like that we had in 5 was in the temple, once again, was the lights.
Yes.
When you had to move that, but then that was as soon as you got it,
in your face.
Every room was exactly the same then.
Yeah.
It wasn't different. It was like you figure out one and then it's all the same. All right, I'm going to go off on a tangent with this, right? So, remasters, are they a good thing?
Remasters, now this is what I will answer with 2 different answers. If they're done correctly with the right team, yes. Good example, Resident Evil 1 HD Remastered. Great remaster, added stuff that needed to be added and removed stuff that needed to be removed. But in 9 times out of 10, remasters aren't needed unless it's done correctly.
You a good example of remaster.
Go on.
The original Star Wars trilogy. When he remastered it and changed loads.
Yes.
Like the end of the very end of Return of the Jedi, you've got Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen there.
Yes.
So you've got Luke Skywalker that has only ever seen his dad as an old man, and suddenly, who's this guy?
Exactly.
Like, that makes no sense. And, you know, he tried to update the graphics and all. It wasn't needed. And don't even get me started on Han shot first and all that. Oh my God, of course he shot first. Of Greedo didn't have a chance to shoot him. Han Solo knew he was going to shoot him, so he shot him. He didn't need to have the other nonsense. And that weird word that he says now, Greedo, it's like, I can't remember what, but he says like a weird word before he shoots. Like, what the hell was that about?
Oh, I'm going to search that up now.
Because it was never there, and then suddenly it's there. Like, why? Why does he say that word? It's meaningless. It was never there, and now it suddenly is. And it doesn't make any sense.
McClunky.
Yeah, McClunky, shoot.
This will be the end of you. That's what it's translated to, McClunky.
Yeah, but why? It didn't need it. So this will be the end of you, and then Han Solo could have shot him. That would have been fine. But then Greedo shoots. Then, his hand like thick as shit or what? It's like, this guy's got a gun pointing at me. He says, this will be the end of you. And I wait for him to shoot me first? Like, what? Nah, that whole thing. Han shot him because that's what he does. At least it gave him some character. Jesus.
Anyways, we're coming up to the end of this.
Yes, I was just thinking we need to wrap it up. I think we've kind of gone through a lot of stuff and had a good old rant about...
I was about to say, we've both had a few rants and tantrums about things that we're very passionate about, and that's the main thing. I've enjoyed it. It's a very nice, passionate rant.
Yeah, that's what I thought this would be a good one, because it's stuff that, as the resident nerds, there's so many things, like, as I said, Star Wars, DC, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, video games, Resident Evil. It like covers everything in those topics. So I thought it would be quite good one. And we'll probably come back to these separately at some point with some more specifics later, I expect. But
like,
anyway,
we'll focus on like, say, Lord of the Rings for one thing, or Star Wars for one thing. It will be just focused on that genre or that topic.
We'll probably do that as things come out, like as we get more information about the hunt for Gollum. And then we just know that, or the next Star Wars thing that comes out, and there's lots of Star Wars things coming out soon. There's a movie in there.
Yeah.
Mandalorian movie coming out.
Mandalorian movie, which we still have nothing
with Sigourney Weaver in it.
I don't even know.
Yep, Sigourney Weaver's in it. So that could be interesting. So we shall have to see. But yeah, that'll be along soon. And then obviously there's more Resident Evil stuff on the way. So there's lots of stuff to talk about. But anyway, I think we should end it there. So again, if you want to find us on our social medias, mine are Wasn't My Fault and Nukami at various places like Twitch and YouTube.
Myself, it's the same, Twitch and YouTube, but for capital A, Assassino 9982480 on both YouTube and Twitch.
Thank you very much, and join us again next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.